Okay, hello. Welcome back to our series, I guess, of remote learning, if you will. We are now working on the fourth part, the fourth skill of Unit 9, which will focus on graphing and solving quadratic equations. So let's go ahead and fill in some of the notes here, and then, like usual, I'll have you guys, kind of come up with some of these answers on your own and do a few of the examples on your own as well. Okay, so first we are going to talk about a quadratic function, and as you remember from earlier, quadratic means that the degree is to the second power. Okay, and the graph is called a parabola. Okay, so a parabola is what we call a quadratic function's graph. Okay, and we're going to look at just some really basic ones, nothing too fancy. So let's just start with the very basic one, y equals x squared. Okay, this is called the parent function, or the parent graph, meaning that all the graphs that you're going to see are going to look just like this one, except it might get, flipped over, shifted left, right, up, down, but the shape and everything will be exactly the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and just fill out this table. So if I'm plugging in these x values to figure out what the y coordinates of the points are going to be, you're just going to take -2 and square it. And then you're going to plug in -1 and square that. And you're going to do that with 0, 1, and 2. So this is what it looks like when you plug in the x values. And when you do -2 squared, remember you're taking -2 times -2. That's what the square means. And that's going to turn into +4. -1 squared means -1 times -1, which is +1. 0 squared is obviously 0. And then these are going to be the same values we have up here. Certainly a +1 squared or a +2 squared isn't going to turn negative. It's also going to be positive. So these are the coordinates of the points. Okay, now if we graph these, let's take a look at what is going on. So let's do plot the points. So if I go to -2, 4, there's a point there. -1, 1 is right there. Let me zoom in to make it a little easier to see. 0, 0 right there. 1, 1, and 2, 4. Okay, and so what that creates is kind of it's kind of like a U. It's a smooth curve. It's not a straight line. It's not like a V. Okay, and if we actually did a couple more values, like let's go ahead and do 3. So if I were to plug in 3 and square it, since that's what the parent graph is, 3 squared is going to be 9. And certainly if you did -3, that will also be +9. And so that creates a better graph for us to sketch. Kind of hard with all these little lines here, but you can kind of start to see it take shape. It gets taller and narrower. Well, not narrower. It does keep expanding, but it expands slower as it goes up. In other words, it gets steeper. Steeper is a good way of describing it. Okay, so this is the shape. Okay, sorry, you guys will probably be much better at drawing these than I am, but that's essentially what a parabola looks like. Okay, and my advice, my suggestion to you guys, especially as you guys move forward into Algebra 2 and other advanced classes like pre-calc and calculus, make sure you just know the parent graph. Okay, this is the parent graph right here. -2, 4, -1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 4. As long as you know those points, then things that we're going to do later on are going to make a lot more sense. So just kind of remember that. But for now, we're just going to kind of, plug in the values, see what happens to the graph, and let you guys kind of figure it out, make some conjectures, okay? So I'll let you guys do number 2 on your own, but I will just remind you that when you have a negative squared, okay, remember that what you're plugging in, so in this case you're plugging in -2 and you're squaring it, but this negative is still there, okay? So I'll kind of lay out the framework here. So if you're plugging in the values correctly, you put them into the parentheses, you square them, and then whatever you get, you're going to multiply by -1 to get your final answers here. Okay, so you guys will fill that in and then draw the graph on your own, and then you will go ahead and see if you can understand and answer this question here. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Let's try number 3. So same idea. Okay, so we're just again going to plug in this -2 into the x, but then notice we're now adding 4 to that. And we're going to do that for all the values. And if you've kind of paid attention to the numbers, right here is the parent graph, right? So if you remember that this was 4, 1, 0, 1, and 4, now we're just going to add 4 to all those values, okay? Now, if you don't see that pattern, not a big deal. You just do it, do it one problem at a time. So like -2 squared is +4. You add 4 to that, you get 8. -1 squared is +1. You add 4 to that, you get 5. And so on. So you can kind of do those. Okay, so here's the table of values for y equals x squared plus 4. Okay, and now if I graph that, again, let's zoom in. So -2 is going to be at 8. -1 is going to be up at 5. 0 is going to be at 4. And then these values on the right side will be the same. And so there's our parabola. So here's sketch. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so hopefully that makes some sense here. I will let you guys figure out the table for number 4, draw the graph on your own, and then answer this question here based on what we've seen. Okay, and then finally, if we do number 5 and number 6, I'll get you started a little bit with number 5, but here's, again, you're just plugging in -1, and so I'll do the first one. If you replace, if I show every detail, so I got parentheses, and then I replace x with -1, and then I subtract 1, and then I square it. Okay, that's what it looks like if you plug it in, showing every detail. You do the inside, remember the order of operations, right? Parentheses, or grouping symbols. Some people use GEMDAS. Parentheses come first, and then exponents. So you would do this first, which is going to be -2, and then you square it, and you get 4. Okay, so again, that's kind of what it looks like. You're going to do that for the rest of the table, draw the picture, and then also do the same thing with number 6, and then answer the question here on the bottom of page 94. Okay, so that's, I think, a good enough intro for just drawing some quick graphs of basic parabolas. Until next time.